Welcome back, adventurers. It's Abby from Adventurous Advocates, and it is our Tips Tuesday, and we're excited to dive in to all the tips on how to prep for a Disney World or Universal trip. Welcome back, advocates. I'm excited to see you, and I appreciate you joining me today. I'm Abby from Adventurous Advocates, and it's officially Tips Tuesday. And today, we're going to explore all the ways that you can prep for your upcoming Disney and Universal trip. The number one mistake that I see people make at the park is not setting realistic expectations. They're so excited about coming to Universal and coming to Disney, and they want to do it all. They want to see all the shows, and they don't plan ahead, and they just throw themselves into it full force, park open to park closed, extra magic hours, whatever they can get, cram it in. And by the end, they're sick, they're tired, they're frustrated, they've had fights, they've had meltdowns, and that is not fun. Okay, so the first tip that I have for you is to set realistic expectations. Now, what does realistic expectations mean? It means that you don't necessarily go in with the mindset of getting to see everything, that you ask every member of your family, what is something you really want to do on this trip? And everybody pick 1 to 2 things of must do's, and then try to plan your day around those and around the heat or whatever unique needs you have, but be okay if maybe some of the things that were not on the priority list don't get done. Those are for next time. It's not a big deal. So the third tip is one that I feel like you may not have heard a lot about. You can actually go on the Universal app, and then you can also go on the Disney app. And then there's actually, for Disney, there's another app that is called the Kingdom Guide, and it will tell you wait times for restaurants, wait times for rides, and current downtimes and busy times and all sorts of things like that. And the reason this is important is because you can actually plan your day ahead of time. So if you're going during the summer and you know the hottest hours of the day are between, noon and 5, or that you can watch it, in advance, you can go on there and you can see that for the last week, when you popped on at, 8 or 9, that Rise of the Resistance was 120-minute wait. I made that up, but 120-minute wait. But at 4 o'clock, it was a 40-minute wait. You can kind of have an idea. And the reason that matters is because the ones that are super high minutes all the time, when you come in, you can get a time for that. And then you can look on there and see the ones around that ride that have less times and go ride those while you're waiting for that time to click down. And you can also schedule it to where if you have a ride that's going to be outdoors and really hot, then you can also schedule to be in rides that are cooler while you wait for that. An example of that would be if you go to Magic Kingdom and you're going to ride the Tomorrowland Speedway, every bit of that is outside and it's hot tarmac and you're going to be baking in the sun. It's super fun, but by the time you get off of it, you may well feel like you're a melting popsicle. So you don't want to follow that up with something else outside in heat where you may, especially if you have heat sensitive members of your party, have a major issue. So you may want to, as soon as you get done with that, get a comeback time for an indoor ride and then go to Laugh Factory in between so that you can have Laugh Factory, a meal, and Buzz Lightyear to cool down on the inside and the air conditioning to give yourself a chance to regulate and not be outside in the hottest part of the day, and then schedule the outside rides on your DAS, at times when they're either lower weight or they're kind of in between air conditioned rides. So knowing ahead of time, watching the watch times before you go allows you to actually kind of create a blueprint or a war plan on how to get the day done to maximize your time. So we have actually already made a video on how to attain your access pass for Universal, and like I said, that will be linked below. But on the Disney app, you can actually, once you go into any of the parks, you will go straight to guest services and register with DAS. They don't ask as many invasive questions as Universal does. They will scan your tickets or bands and they will ask you how many in your party. They will link it, and it is a very cool system. You can actually go in and make a reservation right on the app. You don't have to go up and have somebody write on a card or keep up with the card or anything like that. And then once you scan into a ride that you have a comeback time for, you can immediately, even in the line line for that ride, go ahead and get another one. Also on the app, and you can do this before you go, they have a list of different disability services by each park. And so there's a really cool disabilities link right there in the main screen where it talks about future plans, DIS, and all that kind of stuff. So there will be an upcoming video on how to use the DIS app on your phone. And so be looking for that because that's coming very soon. But until then, you can go ahead and explore that by downloading the app. Tip number 2 is know before you go. So you need to look into the attraction assistance passes. We can link that video below. You need to look into the DIS system on the Disney app, download all the apps, give a call to customer service to discuss with them your child or your unique issues or needs to find out what services are available before you get there, and really watch a lot of YouTube videos from people who have similar issues and things like that, because it helps you. Once you get there, you don't want to waste hours and hours trying to figure out how to find accommodations. You don't want to figure out later that you could have very easily just attained something small, or in the middle of a meltdown, you don't want to try to figure out how to get some sensory items or a cool down or sensory deprivation space. You want to know ahead of time before you go so that A, you can avoid some of these bigger meltdowns and issues, and B, you can have a more enjoyable trip because all your needs are met and you're able to have a well-supported experience that increases the chance of having a thriving, happy trip. In a lot of ways, the act of planning those priority things can be more fun than actually going to the park, because your kids won't be sure about which rides they want to be a priority. So you can go on YouTube and you can watch different rides. You can do some research together. You can talk about it over dinner. It gives you a lot of open conversation leading up to the trip. So picking a priority ride doesn't have to be a bad thing or a negative thing. It can be a super exciting thing and something that leads to a lot of excitement building up to the trip. Another good reason to have a word plan or a blueprint for the day is that you may have members that aren't using the DIS as much, or would like to go ride rides that your individual with unique needs doesn't feel comfortable riding. And if they know approximately when you're planning on being at a different ride, then they can go do their thing and meet up with you at the appointed time for the next ride, or the appointed time for, when it next lines up. And so it really helps people to kind of come back together and not have as much stress with separating and come back together if you do have children or adults that are old enough to sort of engage in that feature of park enjoyment. So the next little bit of advice I have is that if you have a child who's nervous about a ride, hasn't ridden a ride, or maybe you're not sure if this ride would be appropriate, whether it has flashing lights that may affect people who have seizures, or if spinning and equilibrium are difficult for certain members of your party, you actually can go and find most POVs for rides on YouTube. So you just search POV, the ride name, and it will most often come up with multiple options. And it will also come up with people giving reviews of that ride. So there doesn't have to be any surprises. And even if you get in the park, and this happened to us, my daughter was very afraid of the outside of Haunted Mansion. And so we took the time to pull it up and let her watch it right there in the park in front of it and decide whether that was something that she felt comfortable trying at that time. And if the answer is no, if they watch it and they don't feel comfortable, then that is perfectly okay. In my daughter's case, she told me that she didn't feel comfortable with the room that sank and had the dropping person, but she did want to ride the rest of the ride. So we spoke to the attendant and they were able to move us past that part of the queue. And in most cases, if there is a portion of the ride, as long as it's not while the ride vehicle is operating, then they can help you get it past intros and different things like that. If they make the child nervous or they don't like the congestion of a clumped room, they can bring you in back entrances and things like that. And so if you watch it and you know your feelings on it or your needs on it, then you can ask for help in specific ways. So that's another great reason to watch POVs and really do your research before you get there on each ride, but also sections of parks. So my final basic tip is to remember that Florida is insanely hot. I love Florida. It is my home. I've lived in other places and I would never want to live anywhere else. However, that being said, our summers are a lot like what Minnesota winters are. We don't go outside as much when it is burn your mind out hot. And so many people, because that's when school's out, that's when they come, but then they don't take into account the heat, the humidity, just how it is like walking outside in a sauna or hot tub, but you're not in water. Okay, so it can be like that, and it is most likely going to rain every day at 3 o'clock in the summer. This is just, we need the rain. This is how it happens. So if you are coming, be aware of what time of year you're coming and bring clothes that are appropriate. Hot clothes absorb heat. Lighter clothes will not make you as hot. You also need to think about the fact that you probably will need a poncho if you're coming during the rainy season. But most importantly, water. So at Universal, you can bring any cup you want. They do sell cups where you can have the freestyle sodas and things like that that you pay for, but they do not charge for water in the freestyle machines. You do not have to have a fancy cup. You do not have to have their cup. Just bring a cup and drink it often. Get your kids drinks between rides. Get your kids drinks just as often as possible because it will help. At Disney, they will let you bring water in. They do offer free water at all of the restaurants and areas that have the soda fountains, but they give you like a cup this big. So it is not very much, but you can bring your own bottles of water in. And when we go, we bring like a gallon. But, you know, it's a little bit different if you don't have a wheelchair ECV with you. But at least a bottle of water that you can refill. They are starting to put in some of the bottle refill stations, but they're not at very many of the parks and not at very many of the locations. So that is something to think about, is that you're going to need to leave some money available or bring enough water that you can stay hydrated, because that is the number one thing that people come. They get very sick. They get way too hot. They don't stay hydrated and they get heat stroke. And so especially if you have a member of your family that is very heat sensitive, then you're going to want to keep that in mind and schedule your rides accordingly and make sure that you bring cool off towels and they have the neck fans and different things like that, and that you do keep them hydrated enough to stay well, because I really wouldn't want anybody to come and get sick and not enjoy their time or ruin a trip because somebody has to go to the hospital or has to spend time in emergency services. They do have an amazing paramedic team at all the parks who will come out, who will cool you down, who will help, who will get you the medical help you need, but you don't want to need those things. You want to have an enjoyable trip without becoming ill for any reason. Okay, I said it was the last tip, but you get a bonus tip. If you are traveling with an individual with autism, I highly recommend that you pack a sensory bag. So this can be just one of those little drawstring pouches, and it needs to have things like a small drink or a coloring page. You have to think about your child's unique needs. Are they calmed down by visual stims, or are they calmed down by physical tactile stims? And in which case, get some of those stimming items. They sell them in huge packs on Amazon. I'll link some below. They have the ones that are more gooey. They have the ones that click and pop. They have the spinny. They have the ones that you turn them and there's strippies. It doesn't have to be anything big, but you need to have 1 to 2 stems in there, and you need to have some activities that they can do. So if they do, even though you'll have the DAS time or the assistance pass, there will actually be some waiting time, and there may be some time that you need to stay inside until some heat clears or parade clears, and you'll want to have something for them to do. So coloring, small puzzles that can be kept in the little metal tins. There's lots of little things that you can do. But you're also going to want to make sure they have sunglasses, and at the lawn stores, they have the earmuffs that cancel sound. They're not that expensive. They sell them at Lowe's, Ace Hardware, anything like that. You'll want to have some of those. And in that, you're also going to want to know when the parades are, because if you are with an individual who is very set off by large crowds suddenly, or loud noises, or flashy lights, or fire, you're going to want to avoid the parades. And so you're also going to want to have preparation. If you got caught in the middle of that, what can you do? So one thing that we keep in ours is a very light, non-heavy weighted blanket. Like we have a small weighted item, but we also have a light blanket that can be thrown over for immediate sensory coverage. And so if you really have to think about your child's unique needs and just pack some things that can help comfort them, that can respond in the event of a meltdown. And if we just put a video on Black Towers, and I'm going to link that below, where they have the autism bags, and they had a really great explanation for why they had everything in there, and I thought that was very cool, and I loved everything that they put in their sensory bag. Card of Florida, their website has some information on how to make sensory bags and what to put in them. I'm also going to link them below, but there's some really cool resources out there to help you build these bags and kits. It doesn't have to be anything expensive. It doesn't have to be anything stressful. A lot of the things you can get from the Dollar Tree if you want to DIY it. I've even seen people just get some bags of beans and put them in a Ziploc bag and then glue the top of the Ziploc bag so that they can move them and feel them and gush them. You can also just get, for some of the tactile and sensory brushes, you can get some of the different types of sponges that are a little, that are different textures that are kind of fun. But sometimes just that transition from what you're focused on to just feeling something different and getting some of that sensory input of the joint compressions or the brushing or the various things like that can really be very helpful for individuals with sensory or autism needs in the parks. So I hope you've enjoyed these tips. If you have enjoyed these tips, please let me know in the comment below. If you have other questions or needs that we didn't cover that you feel like we could provide you tips for, please also put that in the comments below. But also keep watching, because every single video we make is based off of your comments. We're taking your comments and we're saying, hey, that's a great idea for a video. I'm going to do that. So keep watching. We're going to try to get better about announcing the name of the person who recommended we do these videos, so you can also get some recognition, which is super fun. But if you put it in the comments, we take it seriously, and we're really looking into it and trying to explore those issues for you so you don't have to. But I would like you to right now go ring that notification bell, subscribe, hit that like button, and know that we're very grateful for you watching. And until next time, stay adventurous.